I met the man who borrowed people's regrets on a Tuesday that felt especially heavy for no good reason. Nothing terrible had happened. That was the problem. The day was ordinary and my thoughts were loud. He was sitting at a small table outside a closed bookstore, a handwritten sign leaning against the chair across from him. I will hold your regret for 1 hour. No payment required. I read it twice, then once more, waiting for the punchline that never arrived. The man himself looked unremarkable. Middle-aged, dark coat, tired but kind eyes. He held a paper cup of coffee with both hands as if warming them, even though the day wasn't cold. You look like you're carrying something heavy, he said, without looking up. I think you say that to everyone, I replied. He smiled. Only to the ones who stop walking. I should have laughed and left. Instead, I sat down. I don't believe in this kind of thing, I said quickly, as if that mattered. Good, he said. Belief makes it complicated. I looked again at the sign. You're saying you can take regret? Borrow it, he corrected. I always give it back. And if I don't want it back? His eyes met mine then, gentle but firm. Everyone says that, no one means it. I don't know why I told him about the email I never sent. About the friend I slowly stopped replying to because life got busy. Until busy turned into silence, and silence turned into years. About how I still typed her name into search bars sometimes. I don't remember agreeing to anything. One moment we were talking, the next he nodded and said, All right, 1 hour. There was no flash of light, no dizziness, just a strange quiet like a room after a clock stops ticking. The weight I had grown used to, so familiar I'd stopped noticing it, was gone. I stood up slowly. I felt fine, not happy, just lighter, clearer. That's it? That's it, he said. Come back in an hour. I walked away half expecting the feeling to snap back immediately, like a rubber band. It didn't. For the first time in years, I passed the cafe where my friend and I used to sit without feeling that sharp internal flinch. The memory was there, intact, but it didn't ache. It was like looking at an old photograph instead of reopening a wound. I laughed out loud at something on my phone. That startled me. When I returned, the man was still there, still holding his coffee, though it had long gone cold. How was it? He asked. Peaceful, I said. Dangerously so. He nodded. Most people say that. Why do you do this? I asked. He considered the question. Someone once held mine. It saved my life. I hesitated. You said you always give it back. Yes. I sat. How much regret are you carrying right now? He smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. When the hour ended, the weight turned gently, like a blanket being placed over my shoulders. It didn't crush me. It didn't shock me. It just belonged again. Thank you, I said, surprised to mean it. You're welcome, he replied. Same time next week? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We both knew I would be back. Others were there the next Tuesday. A woman who couldn't meet her own reflection. A man who kept rubbing a wedding ring he no longer wore. A teenager with anger trembling just under the surface. The man took each regret with the same care, like fragile glass. At first, it was small details I noticed. The way people stood when they first returned from their hour without regret. Most of them smiled too quickly, like they were afraid the feeling might disappear if they didn't acknowledge it fast enough. Their shoulders sat higher, lighter. They breathed deeper. A woman once laughed at nothing at all, just a short burst of sound that startled even her. But as the minutes passed, something else crept in. A man who had been silent when he arrived suddenly talked too much. He spoke over the man's gentle reminders about the time. He interrupted himself, jumped between stories, as if every thought demanded immediate release. When the hour ended and the regret settled back into him, his voice slowed. He apologized, for nothing in particular, and sat very still for a long moment before standing. A young woman left halfway through her hour. She said she didn't like how it felt. It's like floating, she explained, her smile strained. Like there's nothing pulling me back down. Another person never came back for their regret at all. I waited with the man until dusk that day. When the streetlights flickered on and the hour stretched past 2, then 3, I asked, "What happens if someone doesn't return?" "They always do," he said. "They haven't," I pointed out. He folded the sign and set it aside. "Not today, but eventually. What if they don't want it anymore?" He looked at the empty chair for a long time before answering. "Then something else will replace it. Something heavier, Regret at least tells you what mattered. The next week, I paid closer attention. I watched a woman walk away during her borrowed hour and step directly into traffic, not carelessly, but confidently, as if the world would bend out of her way. A stranger yanked her back just in time. She laughed it off, embarrassed, and when she returned later to reclaim her regret, her hands were shaking. I noticed how people made decisions faster without regret, but not always better ones. They said yes without thinking, no without explanation. They left conversations mid-sentence. One man stood up from the table, paused, and said, "I don't owe anyone anything today," before walking away with a smile that didn't quite know where to land. And I noticed myself. During my borrowed hours, I stopped editing my thoughts. I didn't feel the familiar hesitation before speaking. Once, I nearly told the man something deeply personal, something I hadn't even admitted to myself, until a strange unease stopped me. It wasn't fear. It was absence. The absence of the quiet voice that usually asked, "Is this worth saying?" When the regret returned, that voice came back with it. One evening, after most people had gone, I asked him, "Does it ever get easier, carrying all of it?" He smiled, but there was exhaustion underneath. "No, but it gets clearer." "What do you mean?" "Regret sharpens memory," he said. "Without it, everything blurs. With it, you remember exactly where you turned away." Weeks passed like that. My visits stopped being about relief and started being about understanding. I came even when I didn't borrow anything. We sat together, watching people arrive and leave, watching the street change with the seasons. One night, I noticed his hands trembling as he passed the regret back to a woman who was crying softly into her coat. "You don't look well," I said when she left. "I'm fine." "You always say that." He didn't argue. "How much are you holding right now?" I asked. He exhaled slowly, as if letting go of something invisible. "More than I should." "Then why keep doing it? Because someone has to show people they can survive feeling it again." That night, he didn't offer to take mine. We just sat in the quiet, the sign folded between us. "I think," he said after a long while, "that I've borrowed enough." Something in his voice made my chest tighten. "What happens now?" He looked at the empty chair across from him. "I return it." "To who?" I asked, though I already knew. "To myself." I wanted to tell him not to. I wanted to say he didn't owe anyone that. Instead, I said, "That sounds painful." "It will be," he agreed, "but it will also be honest." The following Tuesday, the table was gone. No sign, no chair, just a faint rectangle on the pavement where it had been. I stood there longer than necessary, waiting for a feeling that didn't come. The regret I carried felt different now, not lighter, but clearer. Like a map instead of a weight. That evening I opened my email drafts. The unsent message stared back at me, unchanged. My regret pressed against me, not as punishment, but as direction. I hit send. I don't know where the man is now. Sometimes I imagine him sitting somewhere quiet, finally holding only his own life in his hands. I hope he kept it. I know I will.